All right, well, let's get started. What I have planned today is to cut a curly layered bob. We're working with a relatively deep side parting. You kind of see it's at the arch of her brow. And we're gonna also look to balance her side parting. There's a couple different ways to approach the line, and when I think of a bob, the bob is all about the line, protecting the line, having a certain strength throughout, and then placing something on top of it to complement the line without completely removing the boldness of the line. We don't want it to look and feel transparent. So I have her hair sectioned right now, and you can see from her deep part, it's working its way towards the center back. So we have side A, side B. And what I want to do for you guys right now is just walk you through the more conventional way to approach a line versus the more salon, time-friendly process. Because we're always up against the clock as behind the chair stylists. So it's always good to think about how to work smarter, not harder. And on this left side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a section from the occipital towards the mastoid. And you can see this section is relatively large. From the bottom of her hairline as we work our way up. If you want to talk in inches, we're maybe about 1.5 inches the way up. The reason why that is I want to create a line that isn't transparent, that's bold intentionally, so that as I place these subsequent sections on top of it, I'm not seeing wispiness and seeing that line move or jump. The way that I was originally shown, long time ago, is you would start with this really small section through here. Even just as I combed that down, I noticed things started to happen. We're working on natural texture, waves and curls, so it's going to jump. Another part of it is you would have your client tilt their head forward so that you had a smooth surface to cut on. And then with each subsequent section, as you worked your way up the head shape, you'd have them start to bring their head up, 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 up. The problem with this, there's a couple issues with that. Once you put someone's head forward like that, that gives them full access to look down at their phone and look at Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. The moment you start trying to actually lift their head up, it's good luck. It's not really going to happen. Another aspect is, since you have the head tilted forward like that, if you are aiming to create, say, a flat line, it becomes very challenging on how to actually keep that line consistently flat. I would prefer just to keep her head upright in a natural position, because this is how she actually walks around. And if I want to actually cut a flat line through here, I can just come through and cut a flat line on it. So there's less guessing. So obviously we're working her curls in a modified state. I'm intentionally manipulating it by adding water. Water is going to help add weight to this hair. It's going to let it fall. It's intentionally pulling it down. So I'm combing this all down, gathering it. And I'm going to aim for a length that's at about her neckline. If you consider what a bob is a line that lives above the shoulder, so it's not interrupted by these types of things and flipping. It's hanging above and it's free swinging. So I'm stood directly in front, and I'm going to use my comb almost like a ruler and a pencil. So I'm going to get these very close to one another, and the angle of my comb is gonna help determine how that line actually looks. So I've already gathered all of her hair down. I'm not going to continually come to the root and keep affecting that area. That area is already nice and organized. Now I'll come through and come just below the root. I'm at a very, very slight tilt, because what happens is when you actually work with curls, when they're wet and you're manipulating them, if you cut a flat line, a perfectly flat line, once it dries, you can expect it's going to start to do this. So if you actually want something that's intentionally flat, aim for something that's just slightly longer.
I have a question from Uleaks.
Yep.
What kind of cut would you recommend for a 2C curl pattern, 2 curl pattern?
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into determining suitability for someone. And I think the easiest way I can answer that is I would have to look at the hair, I'd have to feel the hair, and I'd also have to see someone in real life to determine what might be a good fit for them. We become very occupied or stimulated visually, right? We look at photos on Pinterest and Instagram for a visual reference of things that might look good because we saw maybe a celebrity who had it. And I think those are great as a reference to kind of get an idea of what people ideally want to see. But with curls, all heads of hair are so unique that I never try to like box myself into just this one idea off of a photo. I have to actually communicate with someone and actually feel their hair, feel their curls, learn a little bit about their routine at home. That way, I'm not just cookie cutting and copying someone else's work, but that we're actually creating something together. So just the general answer to that question is every scenario is different, and with that particular hair type, to put it in a category, I never talk in numbers with my clients. You know, I never throw around like 4C and 2B, things like that, because I find as a hair cutter, it's not really, it's never really a point that we have to talk about all that much. I need to understand what curls do when they're touched, when they're pulled, when they're manipulated, when they're lifted, but most importantly, like when they're actually cut. What can I expect out of the process? So I've taken my second section, I've dropped it down on top of the previous line that I've cut. I'll turn it for you guys a little bit. So I can see what I've previously cut underneath, and I have a little more hair contributing on top of that.
Uleaks said, thank you. Looking forward to booking an appointment when this is all over.
That's awesome. I really look forward to meeting you. I think it's rad that you can see some of the process of how I approach hair cutting and just how unique it can all be. So when I'm working this line, I'm stood directly in front of what I'm cutting. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep me on track with consistency of the line. My eye to my eye, this is how I look at the line. I'm not trying to cut the line that is over here by being stood right here on this side. So gathering the hair, letting it fall, placing my comb about midway down. Taking a step. Now let's talk about why this approach is actually scary. 9 times out of 10, when your client comes in and talks about where they would like a particular length to sit, they almost always point to an area in the front, a feature that they want to accentuate, a certain comfort level of where they're at. I'm starting this hair in the back. So I'm spending all this time working back here. She didn't point to a particular part back here that she wanted the length to sit. She pointed somewhere in the front. So by starting back here, there's a lot of guessing that I'm doing as far as judging a length, especially if it's a line that's tilting from short to long. I'm having to pick the shortest point and working to the longest point, hypothetically.
It's for the better. That's me saying that, not Sarah.
Okay. I wouldn't put it past her, it's okay. So I've chosen to stop right at that point, if you can see that. And I left this because I'm just using good judgment. You can see how drastically different the hairline becomes. It starts to move up and over and it gets this really weak point. So if I just went and cut that, I risk losing the consistency of the line. And I'm taking relatively large sections as I make my way up the head, because that's how I'm gonna feel most in control. Now that I have all this density coming down, I feel like I can accurately place a line through here. Consistent moisture through the hair is extremely important. If you start to let one area dry while the other stays really consistently moist, you run the risk of there being inconsistent tension throughout. And if inconsistent tension is there, you're not going to get a very good balanced shape and haircut. So once again, not returning to the root. The root looks all really nice and organized. So I'm in that troubled spot right over the ear where the hairline is the weakest. I can see my line, but I'm really going to exaggerate, relieving some tension from it.
Color Bar said thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. I think a really intriguing part of this all, and you consider our design where we're working on this dome, right? So where we started at the occipital, the hair simply hangs off the head. It just drops. And as we make our way up, this hair has a little more distance to travel. Then it hangs. Now that we're on the top, it has to actually crawl across this landscape. So it's going like this, and then it's falling. So there's a lot of discipline that it takes. There's a lot of maybe areas where things can go wrong when you're approaching it this way. I've taken maybe 6 sections and I've done a lot of moving. I've walked with it. And I find approaching it this way can actually be quite challenging.
Oh, cool. Color Bar said, Color Bar, it's Nicole from Germany. Thank you for always sharing.
You're welcome. I think as an educator, it is always a privilege to be able to share with somebody and give them maybe more opportunities to try things just slightly different in their day-to-day. Useful tools.
Sarah and Warden said, my phone died, but I just want Aaron to know that his hair looks fine, but I really prefer the prom hair.
I'll probably bring it back one of these days. There's one thing that I wasn't doing while I was cutting this line that I would normally be doing in the salon is starting to play with the hair and move it around and actually utilize my mirror to see what's happening as I'm actually cutting the line. So that's side one. Took a little bit of time, probably too much time. You have to consider as well, when you spend a lot of time on the line, you also probably have to layer it or graduate it to do things afterwards. So where do you want to place all your time? You want to get the line in quick, or do you want to spend 45 minutes on the line